Tim Wilson from the Maxim Institute. Kia ora, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Kia ora, good morning, Andrew. Great to be with you.
Now, the Aussies have got a slightly different system than us in that they actually, threaten and bribe their populace to go to the polls. It's illegal not to vote, and I think there's a wet bus ticket of a $20 fine if you don't, but they do hand out free sausages for people that do. So perhaps no surprises, a good turnout to the election.
Yes, and as a parent, I think all parents will recognise the carrot and stick approach that the Australians deploy. What was interesting about that turnout, it's just to your note about the fact that it's compulsory to vote. You still don't get the same turnout. You still get about the same turnout numbers that are consistent throughout the rest of, particularly for young voters. And that's what I want to talk about. Is there was a really interesting demographic shift in the recent Australian election, in that millennials and Gen Z, that cohort, outnumbered baby boomers at the ballot box for the first time. Now, you want the numbers? I got the numbers.
The numbers,
so Gen Z millennials, 7.7 million votes versus 5.87 million votes for baby boomers. And that's the first time that's happened in Australia.
That is significant and, very different from what's happening on this side of the Tasman, of course. I mean, there are pockets, there's a exception to every rule, but generally, if your policies are popular with the older people, if you can give away some lollies for the retired community, perhaps, then you're probably going to do quite well at the polls. Yeah. But what's driving millennials to go to the polls in Australia? Is that clear?
Yeah, look, I think it was a variety of things. The chief issue for millennials and Gen Z, or one of the chief issues, was housing. And look, there's a backup for the sort of backup for that. There was a YouGov poll last year saying that 36% of Australians now regard housing affordability as the top federal concern. Now that goes to 50% for 18 to 34-year-olds. Another report, Mortgage Choice Home Loan Report sample says that 87% of Australians consider housing a key voting factor. I would say that would be mirrored here as well, because we obviously have a preoccupation with housing, and there are substantial generational differences in the viability of owning your own home as compared to...
I mean, basically, the millennials can't get into housing because the baby boomers have bought up all the houses, plus some spare ones, plus a holiday home, plus some rental accommodation for their housing.
Now, hang on. Now, wait. Now, I don't want you going down the road of the demographic jewel, Andrew. Are you familiar with the demographic jewel?
Well, exactly. Pistols at dawn. And it's, typical millennials, and some would say...
Exactly.
And the boomer comment goes backwards and forwards. There seems to be a greater divide.
It's got your, what is it? So it's got your baby boomers who are well off, but they can't handle a smartphone. You've got your millennials who, they're working their guts out and complaining a lot, grizzling, and you've got Gen Z who like to work from home, and but everyone ends up sharing a pavlova at Christmas time.
It seems like in some ways the generational divide is more harsh than even the political divide, but that's just my perspective on this one. Is that divide possibly healing across the Tasman, or less evident than it was?
You know what? I think it's actually over-egged by click-hungry algorithms. So if you think about your own family, so we go, okay, these baby boomers don't want young people to own their own homes. Think about grandparents.
Yeah.
What grandparent doesn't want their grandchild or their own child to own their own home? That would be a particularly malevolent version of a grandparent. And most grandparents, I would say, are often actively helping their kids or their grandkids attempting to get into homes. So I think those kinds of demographic dual divisions actually don't recognize the generational tide.
Okay.
And all generations commingle. That that they may sneer about each other to their mates on Snapchat, but they actually, I think there's a firmer foundation there than you would than you would be led to believe by these demographic divides.
I mean, all generalizations are false, including that one. Although it is also true that I own a house and don't know how to use my smartphone, so there is some truth in some of that. But actually,
But you're not a baby boomer, are you?
Well, no.
You're far too. Your features are far too young and callow for that.
thank you so much for that. TV is a wonderful thing. Now, with what the Australians got right in this regard, I suppose, because this is something that we've, I suppose, from a democracy point of view, been wringing our hands about for a while, is how do we engage with new generations when it comes to democracy and policy and all that sort of boring stuff that you can't squeeze into a quick TikTok. Sorry, my generalization is showing again, isn't it?
Again, demographic dual stuff. Look, I think it was clear that both parties were keen to focus on housing. So Labor pledged a $10 billion package to build 100,000 homes exclusively for first home buyers, including a guarantee allowing purchases with only 5% deposit in terms of just like if you're a first-time home buyer. The coalition came up with sort of tax relief as well, but it probably didn't land as much. And to be fair, this wasn't the only issue, but I think it was a galvanizing one. So I would say, in our country, if you can offer a transformational policy on housing, then you may be able to build the kind of coalition that we saw over in the Australian election, the Gen Z plus millennials. There's also, I guess, a natural attrition rate with baby boomers as well, because over 70s are less engaged than under 70s at the polls. But the lower, say when you get to people in their 20s, 18 to 34, etc., that engagement is low around the world. But it's changing. Look at Australia.
Is it likely to be the same issue here on this side of the Tasman? Because the other trend that we are seeing, and apologies for these broad sweeping generalizations, Tim, but for some of our millennials, the answer to the problem is, well, I'll just go to Australia and take my university degree skills with me.
Yeah, and that is also part of that's really interesting. I mean, I know of someone qualified, looking for work in the legal field, and just couldn't find, and a great person, would be great to contribute to the future of New Zealand, but couldn't find work here, went reluctantly to Australia, got a job, and I think that's the argument that the offer that we make to young people in terms of jobs, the ability to get ahead, and housing is not as good as is being made across the ditch. So who knows? It may be the next time we talk, it may be about New Zealand Gen Zers and millennials who are switching the codes for the Aussie election.
Yeah, it's all the New Zealanders. I mean, there's that great quote, I think it was Robert Muldoon, that said that
when they go across, they raise the IQ of both
nations. Yeah, but I couldn't possibly comment on that one. Hey, very interesting to look at the statistics on this one, and I mean, there's a bit of hope in there. Generally, Tim, that if we get the issues right, if we scratch where it's itching for the new generation that are looking for hope, that are looking for a place to belong in New Zealand, perhaps that will engage them both politically and in terms of making a commitment and contributing to the society they're a part of.
Absolutely, and it's a challenge to our politicians. Sharpen your wits, not your knives. Get and go. Let the policy go where the trends are going.
Well, appreciate your insight. Now, this particular article is going to be posted, I understand, on the Maxim website a little bit later this week, maxim.org.nz. Encourage people to have a look at that, perhaps forward it to somebody from a different generation to yourself and engage with some conversation, get their point of view, see what they think about it. A wonderful conversation starter there. Tim, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much. I'm putting you on a moratorium of generalizations for the next 15 minutes, Andrew.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.